I found out my wife had another family when our daughter's $180,000 college fund disappeared. She had 2 other kids. I, 42M, never thought I'd be writing something like this. 2 months ago, I was going through our family's finances to plan for my daughter's upcoming college applications when I noticed something wasn't right. The dedicated college fund I'd been contributing to for the past 17 years was almost empty. Not just a little depleted. We're talking about nearly $180,000 gone. The moment I saw those numbers, my stomach dropped. You know that feeling when you suddenly realize your whole world is about to change? That's what hit me. At first, I thought there must be some mistake. I called the bank, spent hours on hold, getting transferred from department to department. The representative confirmed what I was seeing: systematic withdrawals over the past 3 years. Looking at the transaction history felt like watching a slow-motion car crash. $8,000 here, $12,000 there. Always just under amounts that would trigger automatic alerts. Someone who knew our accounts intimately had been carefully draining the fund. My wife and I had always kept our finances mostly separate, maintaining just a few joint accounts for household expenses and our daughter's future. We both had good jobs. I'm in software development, she's in pharmaceutical sales. And we'd agreed early on that financial independence was important to both of us. This arrangement had worked perfectly for 19 years of marriage. Every month, we'd both contribute to the household expenses and our daughter's college fund. We'd review the accounts together during our yearly financial check-in, though I now realize my wife always managed to keep these meetings brief and focused on the main checking account. The night I discovered the missing money, I waited up for my wife to return from her business trip. She walked in around 11 p.m., looking tired but relaxed, kissing my cheek like it was any other evening. I can still remember every detail of that moment: her familiar perfume, the sound of her heels on our hardwood floors, the way she smiled as she asked about my day. It's strange how these ordinary details become significant when you realize they're part of a lie. When I confronted her about the withdrawals, she didn't seem surprised at first. She gave me a rehearsed-sounding story about investing the money in a better-performing fund, but something in her expression didn't sit right. It was like watching a mask slip for just a second. I saw panic flash across her face before she composed herself. She couldn't provide any documentation, and when I pressed harder, she got defensive and left the house, saying she needed time to get the paperwork together. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the little things that hadn't quite added up over the years. The frequent business trips that seemed to follow a regular pattern. The way she always had a reason why I couldn't join her for work events. How she managed her own schedule so meticulously that even after 19 years of marriage, I never really knew her daily routine. That's when I did something I'm not proud of. I started digging. I'm good with computers. It's my job after all. And my wife had always been careless with her passwords. She used the same variations for everything: our daughter's birthday, our anniversary, her mother's maiden name. It took me less than an hour to access her email accounts. What I found made me physically sick. There were regular payments to a private school in a town about an hour away, rent payments for an apartment in the same area, credit card charges for children's clothing, toys, and birthday parties, all in a place my wife supposedly only visited occasionally for work. There were emails about parent-teacher conferences, soccer practices, and dental appointments. A whole parallel life documented in her inbox. I spent the next few days in a bizarre limbo, going through the motions at work while secretly unraveling my wife's deception. I found photos hidden in password-protected cloud storage, my wife at children's birthday parties, school events, family vacations, all with another family. She looked happy, relaxed, completely at home in this other life she'd built. I hired a private investigator. Again, not proud of it, but I needed to know the full extent of what I was dealing with. The PI's report landed in my inbox a week later, and it was worse than I'd imagined. My wife had another family, a boy and a girl, ages 12 and 9. She'd been living a double life for over a decade, splitting her time between 2 households under the guise of her demanding job with lots of travel. The other guy? He turned out to be someone she met through work 11 years ago. Like me, he had no idea about her double life. He thought my wife was a divorced single mom who worked hard to provide for their kids. She'd been draining our daughter's college fund to maintain this elaborate lie, playing both sides perfectly for years. The details of how she managed it were almost impressive in a horrifying way. She had separate phones, carefully managed social media accounts, and had even created a fake LinkedIn profile to support her divorced single mom story. She'd chosen a town just far enough away that the 2 lives wouldn't intersect, but close enough that she could reasonably commute between them. I spent days and days trying to figure out how to handle this. Our daughter is 17, getting ready for college, dreaming about her future. She'd spent the past year touring campuses, writing essays, planning her future. How do you tell your child that not only is their college fund gone, but their entire family life has been a carefully constructed fiction? The confrontation with my wife happened on a Sunday evening. I waited until our daughter was at her friend's house studying. I laid out all the evidence on our dining room table: bank statements, PI reports, printed emails, photos. When my wife walked in and saw it all spread out, she froze. It was like watching someone's entire world collapse in slow motion. She broke down completely. Through tears, she tried to explain how it started as a one-time thing, then spiraled out of control. She claimed she loved all her children equally and couldn't bear to choose. She talked about feeling trapped in the perfect life we'd built, about wanting something that was just hers. She begged me not to tell anyone, offering to sell her car and take out loans to replenish our daughter's college fund. But the worst part wasn't the money or even the other family. It was realizing that every business trip, every late night at the office, every girls' weekend over the past decade had been a lie. Every time she kissed me goodbye or called to say goodnight, she'd been orchestrating an elaborate deception that involved not just me, but 5 other people whose lives would never be the same. The hardest conversation was with our daughter. I told her everything the next day. She deserved to know why her college plans might need to change, why her mom suddenly moved out, why our lives were about to be very different. She sat there, completely still, as I explained everything. Then she asked one question that broke my heart. Did Mom ever really love us, or were we just part A of her life experiment? She's stronger than I expected, angry, hurt, but clear-headed. Within days, she was researching scholarships, talking about community college and part-time jobs, making plans to adapt. She deleted all her social media accounts after her mom tried to reach out through them. I don't want to be part of her story anymore, she said. The other family found out too. Their world is as shattered as ours. The other guy reached out to me, and we had probably the most surreal conversation of my life. 2 men comparing notes about years of lies, trying to figure out how to protect our kids from the fallout of one person's unimaginable choices. His kids are younger, still trying to understand why their mom suddenly doesn't live with them anymore. My wife is staying with her sister now, though I hear she's not welcome there either. Both families have lawyers involved. The other guy and I are both filing for divorce. The money situation is a mess. Turns out there are even more financial secrets I'm just discovering. She had open credit cards in my name, taken out loans using our house as collateral. But somehow, that feels like the least of my problems right now. The past month has been a crash course in rebuilding a life from scratch. I'm working with a forensic accountant to trace all the missing money. I've had to explain the situation to my boss because I need extra hours to start rebuilding my daughter's college fund. I'm in therapy twice a week, trying to understand how I missed the signs for so long. My daughter and I are in family counseling, working through the trust issues this has created. The hardest part is the random moments when something reminds me of our old life. Finding her favorite coffee mug in the cabinet, seeing her handwriting on old birthday cards, driving past our favorite restaurant where we celebrated our last anniversary. Each memory now feels tainted, and I find myself questioning everything about our 19 years together. My daughter is handling it better than I am in some ways. She's thrown herself into planning her new future. She's angry, but she's channeling it into determination. I'm not letting her take my future too, she told me last week. She's already been accepted to 2 community colleges and is applying for every scholarship she can find. The legal proceedings are moving forward. Both the other guy and I are pressing charges for financial fraud. The details that keep coming out are staggering. Fake documents, forged signatures, elaborate schemes to hide money. The prosecutor says it's one of the most complex cases of financial fraud they've seen in a domestic case. I never thought I'd be starting over at 42. I never imagined having to rebuild my daughter's trust along with her college fund. But here we are. If there's one thing I've learned from all this, it's that you never really know someone completely, even after 19 years of marriage, even after raising a child together, even after building what you thought was a perfect life. The other guy and I keep in touch, mainly to coordinate legal strategies, but also because we're the only 2 people who really understand what the other is going through. His kids have started therapy too. Sometimes I wonder if our children will ever meet these half-siblings who never knew about each other. That's a bridge we'll have to cross eventually, I suppose. I don't know what happens next. My daughter and I are taking it day by day. We're looking for a smaller place to live. The house feels too big now, and we need to downsize anyway to help rebuild our finances. She's talking about majoring in psychology now, inspired by the therapist who's been helping her through this. Every day brings new challenges, but also small victories. To those who might read this and recognize their own story, you're not alone. And to those who might be considering creating a double life, the devastation you'll cause isn't worth whatever you're running from or toward. The truth always finds its way out, and the damage you'll do to your children is irreparable. Edit. Thank you all for the overwhelming support and advice. To address some common questions, yes, I've secured all our remaining assets. Yes, I'm pressing charges for the financial fraud. And yes, my daughter and I are going to be okay. Different than we planned, but okay. Edit 2. Several people have asked about the possibility of criminal charges. Yes, the police are involved now due to the identity theft and financial fraud aspects. The prosecutor says she'll likely face serious consequences, but honestly, I'm more focused on protecting my daughter and moving forward than seeking punishment. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.